It is January the 27th, 1:01 p.m. here on the west coast of the United States. My name's Arthur. This is the Apologia Center weekly Q&A. I hope you're having a fantastic day. The weather is beautiful here in Southern California. No wind, no rain, sunny enough. It's great weather to be out, as a matter of fact. So if you live in the area, you might want to take a little stroll. Now, you could continue playing the stream on your phone and go out for a walk. Put your earphones in, enjoy your walk, talk to us, write in some of your questions. Might be a fun way to spend your afternoon if you're not having lunch or something of that sort. I've been running around. We had a fun day today so far, and we're going to continue on having a very fun day. Gonna wait for folks to jump in here. What's up, Alpha? How you doing? Excuse me. Hey, Lex, how you doing? Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to ignore you. What's up? How you doing, Righteous? Arnold, hey. Hey. I was texting my wife to have my son bring me some water because I forgot to set it up. Kind of came in here in a rush. Still having internet issues. I'm paying for 1 gig of internet, and I'm not getting those speeds. And then I saw there's a guy on the pole that was working, and I was like, hey, are you fixing my internet? And he's like, no, I'm fixing your neighbor's internet. And I was like, what about mine? And so he said, well, we get called out specifically to do specific jobs. So I called the internet folks and got an appointment for them to come tomorrow and look at it. Seems like there's some wires that need to be changed. So I was like, the internet might go off. That guy's working on there. That's why I didn't generate the link on time, and then sat down, got ready to go, and then realized I didn't get some water here. So how you guys doing? I'm just going to sit here quietly. I should run you guys through like a meditation and prayer time or something. We got the merch out, just a couple of things, because we're designing sweaters and shirts and stuff like that still. But it's another way for you guys to support the work that we're doing. So there's some mugs, a water bottle, and a phone case. Some of you guys are like, oh, I gotta go. The phone case is more like for folks that have really bought into it. So I still haven't bought the phone case, but I need to. Thank you. That is good. Thank God for water. So what up, yo? I got my Bible open. I would confidently say I don't plan on wearing your face. So that's fine. With the shirts we're making is not the face shirt. The shirts we're making is actually going to have the Apologia Center logo on it, and then it's going to have actually I think I might have like a sample of it. Not like a fully finished version of it, but I'll show you what we're working on. Okay? It's going to be something like this, much nicer and better. But it's not going to be my face. The face one was like sort of kind of a joke. So here we go. This is a picture of my computer screen. So this is what it's something like this. It's not going to be exactly like this, but generally the idea will be probably will be a more definitional or something like that. But it'll have our logo up here, and then apologia in Greek, and then what the word means. So these are going to be the hoodies, the first ones that we'll get out, and then we'll do some other designs on various kinds of shirts that are apologetically related. So I was asked actually for the shirt for my face to be something like it's my face on a mug or whatever that says bald ally. But maybe all the bald people will wear that. But hey, look at that. He says, oh, nice. I'll wear that. So a lot of people say they would buy that and wear it. We'll probably make those and they will be in hoodies and then shirts for the time being. And then again, like I said, we'll come up with some other designs. Hey, Arthur, do you eat spicy food, bro? If you're into hot peppers, I recommend the yellow Scotch bonnet. I do eat spicy food, but I'm not one of those spicy eaters where it's like you eat it and then you can't feel anything after that. What if I grow these? Well, I've eaten these, I think. No? What's another? You can grow these. Is it really that spicy? I like gardening, so growing peppers and stuff like that is fun. This has to be in the family of that other spicy chili. It looks intimidating. What's it? What's the spiciness of it on a out of like 10? Someone's selling on Etsy. Someone is selling a fully grown plant. How do you ship this? $75 days old, fully grown, $30 on Etsy. Oh, people are complaining. They're saying they received dead plants. False advertisement. That's not good. I didn't know you can sell plants on Etsy. It's wild. Hit that like button, folks. We are going to design a red one. We're designing a red one. By the way, I like the orange one, man. I think I'm going to buy the orange one myself. Here, I'll show you guys a picture of the orange one. I think the orange one is really nice. That's the orange one, guys. That looks sick, man. We'll mess with the colors a little bit, probably. Like, I don't think it'll be black, the writing. But we will make a red one for Arnold. But I wouldn't mind wearing a red one myself, but I really like this orange one. So we'll mess with it. I'm hoping that we can have this all done by next week sometime. But my designer is a very, very busy man. I think Mike Winger is live talking about whether Christians can be possessed or not. Okay. Okay, so guys, we will have the main colors. We'll have a white one. We'll have a black one. Heather gray, maroon lettering. Interesting. We'll play around with some of the colors, but definitely white, black, red, orange, and then probably a gray one. I think we should be good on that. So he said, ew. Pretty spicy. 100,000 to 350,000 Scoville heat. Man, that might be a bit too much for me. If the hood is black, what color would the letters be? You got to ask my designer that. Only if the guy who helps me out with his designs was watching my streams. What up, Carl? So the thing is that we can come up with, I think we can do like 4 or 5 colors and then see what's being purchased most and then get rid of some of the other colors. But again, like personally, I want the orange one. I'll have a couple of, I'll just end up wearing them every time on my stream. Again, I'm just going to keep wearing them on my streams. Did you see the debate yesterday between Ask Cliff's son? He doesn't have a name, huh? It's Ask Cliff's son. And the atheist Dillahunty. I did not. Who hosted it? Modern Day Debate hosted it. Okay. Stuart, by the way. 2.5 hours long. Okay, so the debate is Christianity rational? Okay, I'll end up watching this 2.5 hours long. So yeah. Look, red's got to be there because like red has to be there. There's no way red's not going to be there. You don't have to do that. It's the other colors. Like it's an executive decision that red will be in that. No, I'm wearing a red one. Forgot his name. Poor guy. Like, hey, they named him Stuart, but everybody calls him Ask Cliff's son. But Arnold, man, come on. Come on. Tell me this is not like amazing. Like you got to put this on like a sticker and put it on the back of your car that says liberals be aware. It's a scary face. Or like, who did you vote for? It's like obey. Yeah. Big giant underneath it, which is right, obey. Like no explanation, nothing. Oh, look at that. We're working on the beanie. By the way, let me give you guys a breakdown of something. This is something I haven't spoken about enough, I would say. In regards to the logo, there's a reason for the logo. Like this isn't random, right? Like you can see it's like an academic logo, and that's the kind of like preppy sort of stuff. That's a part of the whole idea here. But at the top, what maybe some people don't pay attention to is these Latin phrases, right? Veritas, communitas, virtus. Truth, community, virtue. That's extremely important to the way we do things. And it's scholastic. So the logo just looks sick on anything, I think. That's just me. I'm biased. Question. Is it wrong for Christians to support the death penalty? No, it is not wrong for Christians to support the death penalty. The question should be, is it right for Christians to support the death penalty? And I would say, so I think actually the death penalty should be something that's implemented in the law, ideally speaking. That doesn't mean I would always support it in every single country. If the country has a sort of corrupt legal system, I wouldn't be for the death penalty because then it will be and could be used to get rid of political opponents and get rid of even Christians, right? Given the death penalty and all that. You can always build something up. But if there's a generally well-functioning society that has a justice system that does okay, does good, then I would support the death penalty. Because I think there are certain crimes where by committing that crime, you've essentially forfeited your right to live in that society. There's extremely heinous crime. I think the death penalty the death penalty would be a great deterrent, I think. What else? The arguments against the death penalty are things that I find very interesting. So, for example, one of the arguments being that, well, if you give people enough time, they might repent or something like that. My response to that is always that seems to put God into this category of like his sovereignty into question or something like that. I think that if that guy's going to repent, he's not like accidentally going to not repent or something like that. In regards to it being inhumane or something, I think locking people up for 100 years in cages is extremely inhumane. But nobody thinks about that. Nobody even, I actually don't like the way the prison system is set up. I think it's based on the old kind of dungeon system of the Middle Ages. And I think there should be crimes where you pay for it. And paying for it doesn't necessarily go like you go to jail. Like you don't pay for, you like pay for it. There needs to be a way where people get compensated all the stuff that you've done to them. So yeah. You look like a guy named Ernie to me. Definitely not. Let's see. Death penalty conflicts with abortion. It doesn't actually. That is a false argument. That if you're pro-life, that you have to somehow be against the death penalty. Because, like I said, it's a question of justice. You're talking about two different things. Plenty of people have written about this, where it's extremely unnecessary for folks to, bring that. I would say bring that up as an actual argument. Plenty of people responded to this. You're not talking about the same thing. It's like you value the life of the innocent person. Clearly, the person that's getting the death penalty is not an innocent person. And the question comes down to, are there crimes where they are so heinous, where the only acceptable punishment would be to take them, to take their life from them? There clearly is the precedent, and we've seen things in the Bible. In the Bible, there's precedent of death penalty. Someone can't argue like God would be against the death penalty. There's no way you can develop that kind of an argument. If you come up with an argument from Jesus' ethic, generally Jesus is not giving like a governmental policies. He's talking about personal ethics. So I think that's different from governmental policies. If you want to look at governmental policies, it might make sense to look at what we see in the Old Testament in regards to like the government that God sets up and draw from that. And our law is not entirely based on that, but it's somewhat less based on that. Our law, meaning the United States, is influenced by Mosaic law. It's influenced by various kinds of law. I mean, it's influenced by Roman law as well. But the argument that somehow like you're against abortion, you're pro-life, therefore you're going to be against the death penalty, it doesn't stand. I know there's some comments that I'll get to them right now. Okay, so man, pro debates, dude. You're a fast typer. Relax. Take a chill pill. Are you the guy who said we know who wrote the books of the Bible, and then Pine Creek asked you which books and you couldn't give the authors? Are you going to go back on Pine Creek? Am I going to go back on Pine Creek? Nothing is in the works or anything like that. Maybe, maybe not. By the way, my response would be that the authors that the New Testament says that we have in our Bibles, let's put it that way. So I think Luke wrote it. I think Mark wrote it. I think the earliest evidence shows that those individuals are the ones who wrote it. I'm not sure whether what you're saying is what I said. I'm not going to go back and forth, but That would be my stance. I don't. For someone to say, "Oh, the earliest gospels didn't have it written by so and so," it's like, yeah, but all the earliest sources we have. Maybe I wouldn't say all. I'm sure someone will find someone somewhere saying, "Hey, it doesn't. This one guy didn't say it." So the earlier documentations will say those individuals wrote it. So I don't have issues with that. And tell him you found the authors. I don't remember this conversation, by the way. So this is a specific part of the conversation that I said I found the authors and can show it. I don't know. Death penalty is horrible. Don't support it. Be pro-life. Okay, answered that. We've killed innocent people. We know this. This is reason enough to be against it. Maybe so. So I wouldn't. Notice when I started talking about this, I said that ideally in a society where the legal system works. Now, we've killed I think innocent people. That's true. The question comes down to whether recently we've killed innocent people, and maybe we have, and we should look at it. So ideally, I would be for the death penalty, but not practically all the time. But given modern kind of investigative kind of sort of stuff, so I might be for the death penalty in the United States, let's just say, but not be for the death penalty in some other country. Since 1973, at least 190 people who have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to death have been exonerated. Since 1973, at least 190 people who have been wrongly. I'd like to see kind of the details of that stuff. So if you have, buddy, if you have some links on that, can you email it to me? I would like to look at that. Locking people up for 100 years. Who has ever been locked up for just 100 years, let alone hundreds of years? You realize there's people that have multiple life sentences. They're never going to get out of jail. You seem to just jump in here and just start like you're on a what's the word I'm looking for? Man, I'm going to shut my mouth. Do you think Muhammad was a child molester? I think Muhammad, was he a child molester? Did he molest a child? I would say yes. I don't buy the modern Muslim arguments that, oh, she could have been 18 and this and that. I think all the Islamic sources early enough show that he married a 6-year-old, maybe possibly 9-year-old, consummated the marriage. Seems like she was prepubescent when they got married. I don't buy the cultural kind of explanations the Muslims try to give. Was he kind of a serial child molester that he continued to do this? I'm not very sure. I can't comment on that. It's a good argument. If you're pro-life, you'd be against people putting people to death. Like I said, no, it's not. Okay. Man, I want to have you on right now. Would you call in? Because I don't, like, you're typing quite a bit. Why don't you call in? This is correct, Lex. I think I addressed this. I think so. Okay. I'm just gonna like post these and not comment because I sense the sort of individual we're dealing with. Are you against the court system because innocent people have been convicted incorrectly? Right. This is the sort of logic. It's like, oh, innocent people have been put to death. I agree. And so we should re-examine all those things. Like I said, an ideal situation when ideally things are working fine, I think the death penalty should be instituted. But if I take your logic and say innocent people have been sent to jail, let's just say for drug offenses or something like that, therefore I'm against the legal system. It's like, it's no different than what you're saying. 18 people on death row have been proven innocent by DNA. Those people served a combined of 222 years on death row. Yeah, it's because our DNA evidences and investigation has gotten a lot better. So I think the government should compensate those people to the best of their abilities, or absolutely. Like I said, I think I've addressed these things. You can just call back into Pine Creek, tell him the author of the New Testament says. You know, the interesting thing here is that you guys tend to hide behind individuals like Pine Creek. Why don't you call in and have a conversation with me? Doug and I can have a conversation. I think that was a respectful conversation that him and I had. Okay. But why don't you call in and have a conversation with me? That's right, Arnold. Trying to catch up on the comments, by the way. We got 12 people in here, but Pro Debates is making it look like we have like 800 because of his very skilled typing skills. Is it right to take life in the first place? What if God had plans for the individual? So this is a typical argument that comes up, Buck. And my result would be that this is actually doubting God's sovereignty. If you want to have a fuller theological understanding of this, then to say if God had X, Y, and Z, it's like God will accomplish his purposes if he wants to accomplish his purposes, right? And if we use this kind of logic and apply it into any other situation, it just doesn't work, right? It's like, okay, not the death penalty. Cool. How should we punish someone who raped a 2-year-old? How should we punish someone who raped 5 2-year-olds? Oh, give them life in prison. Why? Maybe God has plans for them. Maybe it shouldn't be for the rest of their life. Maybe it should be half of their life. Why? That's so arbitrary. What if God had plans? But like, you can continuously bring up that argument. It's like there are heinous crimes. People commit crimes openly. Genocide. People who instigate genocide and have committed genocide. No, don't give them the death penalty. Someone who's murdered women and eaten them. Oh, don't give them the death penalty. Confessed it. Don't give them the death penalty. We've accidentally killed a bunch of people. Let's not give that guy the death penalty. No, let's give that guy the death penalty. And in the situations in which there's more questions, where it is not that clear, let's develop an appeals process. Let's develop a way where that person has the right to fight for their freedom and to argue their case. Right? Now, that could be modified. But you guys can't sit there in a good conscience and argue with me that somebody who's raped and killed a bunch of 5-year-olds shouldn't be given the death penalty. Our legal system does not work. Do you live in America? Buddy, do you live in America? So, okay, let me address this. So, ideally speaking, yes, very clearly the person getting the death penalty is not an innocent person. Have we put innocent people to death? Yes, because the system is not perfect. As if guilty people haven't been rightfully convicted, or as if guilty people haven't been let off. I just Googled. I don't know what you Googled there. So you're for a child rapist getting off. That's what you're arguing for. Here's the link, pro debates. You can call me. Wait, you think people working in jail are benefiting our economy? Right, because they're such, they're giving so much income into the economy and all that stuff. Bro, it's like slave labor. People in jail is how much are they getting paid? Anybody know what the numbers is? How much people in jail get paid for the work? Buck, I don't disagree. These are hard questions. I've read enough ethics books to understand these are hard questions. Okay, I've dealt with this subject in both, I would say, in from the intellectual perspective, the emotional side, right? Cultural places in the world where like none of this stuff would work because there's so much corruption. Like I get the power in a lot of these questions. I'm just not convinced by them. Comrade King says, "Are you a Christian?" Yes, I am. Please tell me what people in prison are doing that is benefiting society so much where we can't have people outside of prison be doing. Like, prisons do not work. The prison system does not work. It is a mess. The argument you're presenting here that the prison system somehow works is it's you're living under a rock, man. You live in America, born and raised. When you say that our legal system like just doesn't work, that's why I asked that question, by the way. It works 1,000 times better than most places in the world. I see. The thing is that because I'm a Christian, I hold to the fact that human beings are fallible and sinners. I'm already anticipating there's gonna be corruption and evil and wrongdoing and imperfection in anything that humans do. I don't expect the politics to run ideally. I don't expect politics to run perfectly. Like, there's going to be issues in that. But when I compare the United States to other places in the world, as a matter of fact, I would say most other places in the world, we're doing pretty well. Are there areas where we can fix stuff? Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about that. I shared the link, by the way. Here, I'll pin it too. There's no number. That's the link, though. That's the way to call in. The Old Testament says that God is not, can't be a man. The Old Testament says that God is not a man, that he should change his mind. Right? So the context there has to do with how fallible humans are and how much we change our minds. And God is not that he should change his mind. So there's a context in the way the literature is written. How can you believe Jesus is God? Because God can do anything he wants. And if God wanted to become a man, he would. Let me ask you a question, comrade. Are you a Muslim? I'm just presenting arguments on behalf of innocent people. Look, I would defend those innocent people if they're actually innocent. I don't think it's healthy to debate this and lose sight of those most affected by the law. Correct. At the same time, do you lose sight of individuals who legitimate crime was committed against? Are you going to look the mother in the eye where they know for 100% the guy raped their 5-year-old and killed her and say, I don't know about this, right? Like, so you have to feel the punch from both sides when you deal with an argument like this. Okay? I'm feeling the punch that you're bringing up because it's not something I'm just thinking about like right now. I've thought about it quite a bit. But you also have to feel the other side. And so that's where we have to bring in a balance. That's where we have to think about these things quite a bit more and then try to incorporate it into the way we do things. A few cents a day, slavery. So what pro-debate was arguing for was slavery. He's okay with slavery. I'm not. What up, David? How much are the people in jail costing us? Not enough as they're making. I'm not necessarily anti-death penalty. I just think the way the death penalty has been doled out has not been rigorous enough. Amen. I fully in agreement with you. No question about that in my mind. People have abused it, misused it. Not as bad as some places in the world, but they clearly have. We should go through it with a fine comb. I mean, it is a serious matter to put someone to death. And you have a wide range of things, obviously, in regards to like hearsay to, we found the bodies in the guy's house and he confessed it. He said, good, I'll do it again. Clearly a different situation than some people, cops, corrupt cops, planted things on people. Like, we should go through that stuff with a fine comb. Remember, the original question was, should Christians be against the death penalty? My very simple response was, no, Christians should not be against the death penalty. What happened to pro-debate? Lots of typing and stuff being said, and then nothing else. What happened, man? It is more expensive to put someone to death than to put them in life in prison. For those that are concerned about the argument, it's my understanding that the DP, death penalty, is not a crime deterrent either. I disagree with you, Future. Why is it so expensive to put someone to death? You're telling me taking care of someone and all the efforts that goes into the prison system. I find that hard to believe, by the way. I'm a Christian. I understand that all things need to be redeemed. I don't measure our justice system to other places. I measure it up to the ideal. Maybe that isn't right. No, I think we can do that. I think we probably should do that. I think we should call out the inaccuracies and issues within our own justice system. But right, people just generally jump to these extremes. I'm just saying there are very, very clear cases where the person has committed a crime, has committed a very heinous crime, And there's enough and ample evidence for them to be given the death penalty. And then there are cases where people are giving someone the death penalty, but there's some shady stuff going on. It is not as clear. So let's make that better. This one where people aren't very clear, like, let's make it a lot more rigorous, because we don't want to put anyone to death in a very wrong way. Okay? These are the cases I'm talking about. These we can reform and do all sorts of stuff. These are the things I'm talking about. To get rid of these very clear cases because of these ones, I think doesn't help. Let me ask you a question, comrade. Sounds like a commie meeting. Comrade. What happened to comrade? He jumped in here and asked a question and took off. Man, I don't like that, man. You jump in here, have a conversation. You asked me why I believe Jesus is God. I just asked you if you're a Muslim. I answered you, by the way, in the context. People in jail make something like $20, 20 cents an hour. It's literally slave labor. It is slave labor. But we're okay with it. Nobody talks about this stuff, right? Nobody talks about how bad the prison system is. But the death penalty, we go crazy over it. It's like, you guys, we literally lock up people in cages like animals and expect them to be reformed. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that when you lock up people in cages, they start acting more like animals. If somebody locked me up in this office, okay, this is a 10 by 12 office I'm sitting in, and I had very little human interaction, or the human interaction I had was extremely strict, like they started telling me what I could do, I would go crazy. I would start doing stuff that is very much out of my character. Like they allowed me to see the sun for a couple of hours, do a couple of and then plus added on top of that, I was around people that weren't the most kosher people. And we think that's okay. Like when people make the death penalty an issue, and maybe it should be an issue, I want to make the prison system an issue. Making people work for, I think it's proven that when people get paid for the labor that they do, they have a fruit of their labor that they've done. They feel more validated, respected, and honored, and their life improves. But no, let's throw them in cages and pay them 20 cents for doing work, and that improves society. Come on now. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a deist. What you said also doesn't make sense. Prove that the context changed the meaning of Hosea 11:9. Samuel. We'll look at those texts right now. Let's have a Bible study, guys. Okay. Hosea 11:9. I will not execute my burning anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not a man, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath. So notice this statement is put in a sense of in contrast to this statement. I'm not going to do these things. I am the Holy One in your midst. I will not come in wrath because I am God and not a man. This has to do with God flip-flopping, right? I'm not going to execute this. What he's saying is I'm going to show mercy now. I'm not a man to flip-flop, right? again, go, how can I give you up, O Ephraim? So it's God's faithfulness. How can I hand you over, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? My heart recoils within me. My compassion grows warm and tender. So God is going to be gracious and not just lash out in wrath towards Ephraim, because he's not a man, but he's God. That's the context. First one. Let's move to the second one you just brought up. 1 Samuel 15. That's the one I quoted. That's 1 Samuel 15, and then we're looking at verse 29. Let's start with 27. And as Samuel turned to go away, Saul seized the skirt of his robe, and it tore. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day, and has given it to your neighbor of yours, who is better than you. And also the glory of Israel will not lie or have regret. Change his mind, by the way. That word is nacham in Hebrew. Right? You see that? Nacham. For he is not a man. Well, what's the context here? God will not lie and have regret. He won't nacham because he's not a man that he should have regret. God knows what he's doing. He's not going to lie. He's taking the kingdom from you. He's not going to flip-flop, for he is not a man. That's the 1 Samuel 29 passage, 15:29 passage. And Numbers 23, 19. God is not a man that he should lie. There it is again. Or the son of man that he should change his mind. He has said, and he will, and will he not do it? Faithfulness of God. Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? Every single one of the passages you just quoted to me have to do with God being compared to people, and the question is God's faithfulness, his truthfulness, what he's going to say and what he's going to do, rather than him saying something and not doing it. He is not a man that he should be like that, which is say something and not do it. Context matters, comrade. Tom says, the study counted death penalty cases cost through the execution and found that the median death penalty case cost $1.26 million. So this, okay, so it's not the death penalty per se, but it's the continuous appeals that goes into lawyers and all that stuff. That's because, like, in California, as far as I know, there's like an unlimited amount of appeals you can have. Texas, I think, has 3. So maybe it's those sorts of things that need to change. What's up, Mike? What's going on? Even a life sentence can be wrongful conviction. Correct. Should we oppose that? Why not? One bullet doesn't cost much. That's just, yeah. So the thing is that, we want to do this in the most humane way as possible. And there's arguments on this stuff, but I don't think the cost is actually like the death penalty itself, like what happens there. It's all the law stuff before that. Kate Stage. Oh no, I'm very much not okay with it. The prison system needs major reform. Amen. Increase education, life skills, treat them with dignity. I completely agree with you. What do people think would happen? People will get worse. I'm telling you, it's like entirely based on the medieval dungeon system. It's bad. Here's one thing I see in the Bible. You guys notice in the Bible, the justice system in the Bible, it's pretty simple. There's crimes you commit where you die. I'm not talking about the ethics of it, okay? I'm just giving an example of a different sort of thing. There are certain crimes you commit where the punishment is death. There's like no question about it. Even though in the Bible they have sanctuary cities. So these are cities you can run to if you're wrongfully convicted. If people want revenge, you can run to these cities and then they will give you sanctuary and stuff like that to figure it out. And then there are crimes you commit, not crimes, but there are things you do. You can say crimes, where it's you have to pay back, you have to work it off, you go into debt. Like there's people who are geniuses who are sitting in federal prison because they robbed the government, and they're rotting away. Put those people to work, and not the prison kind of work. Like pull them out of prison, put them to work for the government, have them pay that off. They're very smart people. There's many people who are rotting away for fraud and stuff like that. Excuse me. In the prison system. They were smart enough to be able to, get away with all that stuff. But no, we just throw them into cages. Make them pay it off. It could be developed. There could be some kind of a development of some sort of an indentured servanthood where people who do those sorts of crimes end up paying it off. If somebody robs me, I would prefer for them to pay me for the damages and all that stuff rather than go to jail for who knows how long and then get out and then do it again. Like that dude should work and pay off whatever he's stolen from me. Okay. What's up, Jerome? Funny enough, some friends of mine challenged me to make a list of my top 10 apologists, and I regret to inform you that you aren't top 5 anymore. Praise God. You are top 10 instead, but you're new. Yeah, there's no way I would fit my top 10 apologists. I wouldn't even fit my top 25 apologists list. Read the new Jim Crow. It speaks of the justice system and how the prison system is all about slave labor. I actually probably agree with that, but quite a bit. Prison system is designed to keep you in it. Solitary confinement is cruel punishment. Cruel and unnecessary. Bro, I'm telling you, you will take the most sane, rational individual. You put them in a little cube that is dark and uncomfortable, they will turn into an animal. One of my favorite movies, by the way, is The Shawshank Redemption. I think the proper question for a question is whether the penalty for such a crime honors God's justice. Correct. Hey, Apologia Center, I was put in a cage and I was definitely reformed. By the way, your stream is not happening in real time. This makes talking very hard. So every stream on YouTube has like 20 to 30 second lag. You do not have to turn on your camera. I can make it a way where just your voice comes through. No, you can call in and then just give access and then turn it off. Once it's set up, turn it off. I won't put you on the air with your face. And people know this stuff so well. I'm here because I'm curious to see the Christian response to those Bible verses. Okay, give them to you. Are we arguing for firing squads here? No, I don't think so. I didn't know this. Does the Bible have anything to say about reincarnation? No, the reincarnation is not a biblical idea. If I say funny things, I can go up on your list. Wow, okay. Lockdowns are extremely inhumane. Remember when we were promised that they were going to lock us down for 2 weeks? Remember, it was 14 days. It was just 14 days. Save your neighbor's life. Just go inside for 2 weeks. What kind of a cruel, inhumane devil one must be not to do that. Hey, bro, can you hear me? I think your camera's off. Let me give this a go. And don't turn on your camera, okay? If you turn on your camera, then people are going to see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, then you're on. What's up? It'd be nice if I had a little silhouette of a person here, but I can't do that, I guess. Okay, so what did you think about my responses to your 3 verses there?
Well, certainly, I do think it's interesting. Like, I asked you because I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't really think it adds up, right? Because you believe that Jesus is 100% man, right?
I don't use percentages. I don't think theologically it's sound, but sure, he's authentically man. He is a man.
Okay, but the Bible verses say that men are prone to sin. But so how can Jesus be a man which is automatically prone to sin and God at the same time, which
Right.
isn't?
Yeah, good question. This is partly why the virgin conception is such a big deal in Christian theology. Okay, so human beings. Let me backtrack here, and I got a little sermon I put out actually on this. You can watch it, where I break this down like in the philosophical kind of categories. Are you philosophically trained? I just want to know how much I want to go into detail on this.
If you want, you can go into as much detail as you want, but
so in philosophy, there's something called accidental properties and essential properties. Okay, essential properties are the sort of things that things have, and if you were to get rid of them, they would no longer be them, whatever that thing is. Accidental properties are properties that things have that if you were to get rid of them, it doesn't change the nature of that thing. Okay, so it's not that they're accidental; it just means they're secondary. They're not of the essence of that thing. Okay, so a very simple example of this might be something like a pen. Let's just define a pen as a writing instrument which uses ink. So the color of the ink, the size of the pen, the material the pen is made of, like all those things would be accidental. Within Christian theology, sin nature to humanity is not an essential property. It is an accidental property. Okay? Because human beings were human, made in the image of God in the garden, without a sin nature. So sin nature is not essential. It is a addition that hasn't changed the fact that we're still in the image of God. So when it comes to the virgin conception of Jesus and the nature of Jesus, this is why the Bible says that Jesus was made in the likeness of Adam. This is pre-fall Adam, in the sense that Jesus is human fully, and the creeds attest to this, that Jesus is fully human yet without sin, because sin is an accidental property, not an essential property. If you remove sin nature from you and I, we would still be human. As a matter of fact, Christian theology teaches that in the afterlife, when sin nature has been removed, it doesn't mean that our human nature has been removed. We still remain being human. That's the way that this is justified and explained.
Okay. And what's your exact response again to God not being able to be the son of man or the father of man? I think that's what was said. One
No,
of them, at least.
yeah. So it says God is not a man, or the son of a man. So
Yes.
that is a reference that just means human. The son of man, that kind of language is just talking about human. And it's not saying God is not able to be. It's saying that he is not. But the context always matters.
Okay.
Because the context here, like I said, in the literature, and by the way, this is not my first time looking at these texts. I've studied these texts thoroughly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The context here has to do with God showing mercy, or not showing mercy, or saying something and then actually doing that thing. It's almost always that. It is almost always, I said I'm going to be faithful. And guess what? I am going to be faithful because I'm not a man that I should change my mind. That's the context. The context is not a general statement that it is impossible for God to be a man. Okay? Now, with the incarnation of Jesus, what we're looking at is we very clearly look at, this is, you can go look at Philippians chapter 2, is that in becoming a man, Jesus essentially put his divine attributes on a shelf. I'm using my sort of language, right? Where he wasn't accessing it, and he lived a perfectly and authentically human life. Okay, so by nature he is God, by nature he is man. This is what's called the hypostatic union in Christian theology, and without those being confused or separated or something like that. You can read the Chalcedonian Creed if you haven't. But there is no logical contradiction in this matter that it is impossible for God to become a man. These verses are frankly not good enough to quote against the incarnation. There might be other issues that you could bring up that are, I would argue, probably a lot better than quoting these verses, because contextually these verses are all talking about God being faithful or not lying, and clearly God doesn't do that.
Okay. I have a question to you. Do you think that God became Jesus, or was God Jesus from the very start?
Can you help me? What's your nationality?
I'm Russian.
You're Russian. Okay. Здравствуйте.
Привет.
So I know some words.
Yeah.
When I was in Armenia, I wasn't a very good Russian student. Maybe I should have been. This would have been a great case for me to speak to you in Russian. But
Yeah, let me actually say something about Armenia. I think Armenia has really great food. I like lavash. I'm obsessed with it.
So
And
have you been to Armenia?
no, but I've eaten at Armenian restaurants, and Armenian people are also very kind, and I like how old the Armenian civilization is. It's the first Christian country, right?
Correct.
And I said I'm a deist, but still I like Christian values, right?
No, yeah, I get it, man. Our culture is full of that, right? By the way, I lived in Moscow for about 4 months when I was about 10 to 11 years old. So if you're in my area, I'd love to take you out to an Armenian restaurant, or if you're visiting Southern California, there's plenty of them here. We can go out and sit down and have a theology conversation and eat some nice khorovats. So I'm a big fan of dumplings, so I love pilmeni. We're getting into food stuff, but the reason why I asked is because of the way you phrase that question, and we have to be very careful with it. And I understand what it's like when English is a second language. Okay, it is my second language. So I want to phrase the question properly. You're saying, was Jesus always God? Am I understanding you correctly?
I asked, did Jesus, wait, hold on. Did God become Jesus? Was God always Jesus? Not was Jesus always God, but was
correct.
God always Jesus?
Yeah, this is an important distinction, and it's important for this reason. So the person Jesus that we understand is in the incarnation. You get the human nature and the divine nature, and then you get one center of consciousness, the individual that we know as Jesus. To say Jesus was always God could get us in some murky waters, right? So the way we speak about this is we say that the second person of the Trinity, who is God, became a man that we know as Jesus. Okay? So sometimes Christians misspeak about this. Not sometimes. I've heard a lot of Christians misspeak about this, and I've heard preachers and pastors misspeak about this, where they'll say things like Jesus has always been God. And then so the picture that the individuals have is this human being always God. And it gets really confusing for people. In proper Christian theology, we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit who are co-eternal and co-equal God. And one of those members takes on a human nature to himself in the incarnation, born of a virgin, and we know that individual as Jesus, who now has a human nature. So maybe I can say it in a bit of a different way. The human nature that the second person of the Trinity has after the incarnation was not always there. That's a new addition to the second person of the Trinity. I hope that made sense. If it didn't make sense, just please tell me, hey, but ask some backup, because some of this stuff does get a bit, analytical and stuff.
Okay. So you did say that Jesus became God, right? And Jesus God only later he got a human nature, right, in the form of Jesus, right? Doesn't this mean that God changed and God's nature as well? Even though
yes, yeah, very good question. Yeah, so has God's nature changed? Well, yes. There's an addition to the human nature. But when we talk about God being, in theology, we call this immutability, right? God doesn't change, like in his nature. It doesn't mean that God, by the addition of the human nature, now has a loss of his divine nature. This is why the creeds of the church, like the Chalcedonian Creed, specifically says that the hypostatic union, the unity of the union of the natures of Christ, doesn't divide, doesn't subtract, right? Doesn't divide, separate, so on and so forth. It names 4 things. So I want to phrase this properly because I don't want to say heresies. So think again of the accidental properties. Now you're looking at human nature being an accidental property to God, to the God nature, where it doesn't change the essence of who God is. Now, this human nature is only attached to the person of the Trinity, the second person of the Trinity, right, the Son, Jesus, but it in no way does it subtract and take away from the divine nature, and in no way does it add stuff to the divine nature. I might qualify the add stuff, because I can come up with some potential things where I would push myself on it, but definitely doesn't subtract.
All right. What do you think of Malachi 3:6, the Bible verse?
Malachi 3:6.
How do you explain the context there?
Let me pull it up. I wish I had the Bible memorized, but I don't. So.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have it memorized either.
Malachi 3:6 says, For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O children of Jacob, are not consumed. From the days of your fathers you have turned aside from my statutes and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord of hosts. But you say, how shall we return? Will man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. Okay, so we have to understand these passages in the way that God made a covenant with Israel. So let's look at the covenant. So God told Abraham that I will bless your offspring. I will multiply them. They will be my people. he ends up establishing a covenant through Moses. And in the covenant, there's specific stipulations, like any contract you would think about. Okay? So there's things that the people are supposed to do. And if they don't do it, God will discipline them. But within that, there's a faithfulness that God commits himself to with the people of Israel. Notice the way he's saying this. It says, for I, Yahweh, that's the Lord, I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore, you children of Jacob are not consumed. What he's saying is, if I were to change, you would be consumed. Well, change in what sense? Essentially, if I were to break my promise that I made to your forefathers. Because notice verse 7 goes on to say, you guys and your forefathers have turned aside from me. You guys have rebelled against me and broken my laws. And he's saying, return to me. Because God's made certain promises to them. God has made promises to the Israelites that if they were to repent, he will forgive them. He will become their God. They will be his people. And he's saying, I'm still faithful to my promises. Yet he goes on to say, you guys are not faithful to your promises. So the idea here has to do with you guys are being unfaithful to me. I'm not being unfaithful to you. This is very similar language, by the way, that you get in Jeremiah chapter 3, where God actually signs a certificate of divorce with the Israelites. He says, you guys have committed adultery. And now they've committed adultery in the sense that they've worshipped other gods. And he says, I am rightfully in my power to divorce you because you guys have broken covenant with me. The Bible, one of the things that people need to realize is that the Bible is written within not only a cultural context, but within a covenantal context. So that, the main separations of the Bible are the Old Testament, which means covenant. So the Old Covenant, and then the New Testament, the New Covenant. If we don't understand the covenants that God establishes with people, it's going to be hard to understand the promises of God, those things he's going to be faithful to and not faithful to. Like, for example, if I say, God's going to make me rich and very powerful and give me a kingdom because he told Solomon or David he's going to do this, that would be an improper way of using that text. Because that's not the covenant he made with me, that's a covenant he made with David, let's just say. And so this also, Malachi 6 is one of these things where he's responding to his covenant faithfulness and then telling the people of Israel, you are not. And he's saying, look, I'm not a man. I'm going to stick to my covenant. I'm going to stick to my faithfulness towards you, but you guys are the ones that are being unfaithful. Let's see if there's anything I want to add to this. If you have a backup to that, if you want a response, feel free.
Well, yeah, like I said, mainly was just curious to know how you would reply. So I'm gonna spend some time analyzing what you said, and I thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for calling, man. Here's one thing I would say: there is an art and science of biblical interpretation. Okay, it's a study called hermeneutics, and because any literature we study, we have to read it within its literary context, historical context, right? So there's a bunch of contexts we can talk about, but it is to understand literature, any literature, within its proper context, or else we won't make sense of it. And the Bible is no different to this. One of the things I see from people who are either inquiring or even people who are like very much against Christianity, and I see this from Christians as well, is that they take things out of context. We have to read the entire thing as a whole, or else we can make the Bible say whatever we want it to say. And some people do that, which is a wrong thing to do.
Yeah, especially Protestants.
Well, I'm Protestant, and I would say some Protestants. Yeah, I would say some Protestants.
I thought you were Orthodox.
I'm not Orthodox, no. I grew up in the Armenian Apostolic Church, but I'm not. Now, for me, I would say, again, the argument for early Protestantism, there was a very interesting thing. Here's in regards, I don't know how familiar you are, but in early Protestantism, there's this idea of sola scriptura, right? This idea that it's by Scripture alone. And the idea there is that you understand Scripture by Scripture. It is that you understand this stuff in context. That, if a pope or a bishop or a priest or whomever likes to say certain things about the text, if it doesn't go along with the text, the meaning of the text, then that individual is wrong and the text is right. So Protestantism, rightly understood, and I don't know, again, there's many different branches. I don't know what your experience has been. Trust me, there's plenty of people within the Protestant camp that I would disagree with and the stuff they're doing. And I would say they're actually misquoting the Bible and doing incorrect things. But Protestantism is highly committed to the text of the Bible. And if the Bible is God's word, we want to be committed to it as much as possible and to understanding it within its proper context. By the way, your questions are like extremely developed and good questions. Most people don't ask questions of this sort. So I want to commend you for that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, man.
God bless you.
You too. God bless you. You guys, that is a really good example of how conversations should be. Respectful, honoring, and good questions, challenging questions, right? Sometimes the stuff people throw out our ways, it's just like, oh, man, come on, like 1,000 times. This friend right here is seriously thinking about this stuff. How do I know he's seriously thinking about this stuff? Because he's asking questions that I would say probably 90% of people, including Christians, aren't asking. These are hard questions that I've had to personally wrestle with. I've had to read a bunch of books on them and explanations. All the passages that were brought up about God changing, I did studies on it when I was in Bible college. Whole studies on the word nacham. Okay, what it means, the different contexts. Because nacham can mean change mind, nacham can mean repent, nacham can mean regret. So contextually, there's many things that contextually this word is used in a number of different ways. So usually when we see God actually do nacham, change his mind or change the way he's doing things, it is either to judge or to show mercy. So we see God in Genesis chapters. This is a bonus, by the way, for Comrade, if he's still on. We see God in the book of Genesis where it says God regretted that he had made man and then judges them, right? It's the same word, nacham. I think we see it when Moses prays that God wants to destroy the people of Israel, and then Moses prays and it says God nacham. He changed his mind and he showed mercy. He did not destroy the people of Israel. It's a phenomenal study. I'm very sure you can find resources online where you word studies, find that word nacham, see the amount of times it's used in the Bible, look at all the passages, and then go through the context and see how they differ and how they are similar. So yeah. Sad that might not have been his issue. That might have been mine. I might have had his volume up too high. So sorry about that. What's up, Daniel? Mike Winger is live as well, but I chose this channel. So entertain me. Wow. Mike Winger's the man. I actually had him on mute over here as Mike Winger. And I wish you guys were on when Mike Winger jumped in my channel and encouraged me to continue doing this. He's been very encouraging to the way that I've done this, and a number of times. And in person, he's encouraged me to continue doing this. And also, like I've had like 2 people in a stream, and Mike Wingers jumped in here and said, "Hey, I just want to jump in and say hi. I'm on my way somewhere. Keep doing what you're doing." So very, very good guy. I love Armenian food. Who doesn't? How can you not like Armenian food? Very good explanation. Thank you, Daniel. What part of his divinity did Jesus lay aside? It seems like Jesus doesn't access any of his divinity. Like, I don't think Jesus accesses the all-knowing stuff, all-powerful stuff very clearly, right? Like, it doesn't seem like Jesus accesses any one of those things. And so here's the thing that a lot of people misunderstand. When it says Jesus knew what they were thinking, it's not because he's divine and he knows what people are thinking. I would say all the time those passages are used is because the Holy Spirit gave insight in a given situation to Jesus about that situation. But if God's nature has changed, doesn't that make the nature of God unpredictable? No, again, this is where we would nuance things, Haraj, in regards to what that change looks like, that it doesn't cause his essential natures to change. Comrade, the stuff you bring up was likely in the mind of many Jews during Jesus' time. That's very true. It's one of the reasons that Jews sometimes wanted to stone Jesus. It wasn't an easy doctrine to accept, but I think the New Testament makes it quite clear. Yeah, so I don't think he's not just denying that, right? He's like, I want an explanation. And that's what I really appreciated about this conversation. So he's saying, hey, here's what the Old Testament says. And you got to convince me that the New Testament is not a contradiction of this. Now, one of the things we didn't go into is some passages that would suggest that there is a second divine individual that we see in the Old Testament. So the one that Jesus quotes is when he's talking to the Pharisees, he says, let me pull this up, right? Let me put it up. So Matthew 22. Matthew 22. Wait, what happened here? So notice this passage here. Where is it? Sorry, let me con. I don't know a lot of Protestants, kind of liberal. Depends where. So traditional Protestant churches here in the United States are actually pretty liberal. I'm still on, but I'm about to go to bed. It's 1:24 a.m. Well, God bless you, man. The text I was going to bring up, if you want to stick around for this, is this text. Okay. So now the Pharisees were gathered together. Jesus asked them a question saying, what do you think about the Christ? So what do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he? Because it was commonly believed that the Messiah, the anointed one, that's what Messiah means, Mashiach, is the son of David, which is what they said. They said to him, remember, these are Pharisees. They said to him, the son of David. He said to them, this is Jesus. How is it then that David in the Spirit, now notice he adds here in the Spirit because he's saying David is being inspired to write this. This is from God. Calls him the Christ, right? Lord, saying, and then he quotes this passage here from Psalm 110. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet. Then Jesus asks, if then David calls him Lord, how is he his son? Because he's greater than David. That means he pre-exists David. And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day did anyone ask him any more questions. So Jesus quotes David and says, if the Messiah is David's son, why does he call him Lord? So now, from Christian perspective, we're looking at this and saying, okay, so the Christ is the one next to Yahweh, where Yahweh says to him, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool. Or in the book of Daniel 7, where there's one like the Son of Man that approaches the Ancient of Days, and the Ancient of Days gives him a rod and a staff to rule the nations, to govern all the nations, to rule over them. And he's coming on the clouds to judge. And so when Jesus is in front of the Sanhedrin, he says, behold, I see the Son of Man descending on a cloud. They say there's no need for any more witnesses because we've heard him confess this. It's blasphemy. He's claiming to be the Son of Man from Daniel. He's claiming to be the Messiah. He's claiming to be the rightful king of the Jews. So these things are all tied in there properly. I want to see Mike Winger on your channel. I've asked him. When I asked him, sorry, I should, maybe I'll reach out to Mike again. But when I asked Mike, he was so engulfed in doing his study on women in ministry. He was reading so much, he just didn't have enough time. Poor guy, he looks so tired. Look at his eyes. I have him on right now, by the way. Look how tired Mike Winger looks. And he looks angry. He's like such a soft-spoken, kind guy. Look, Mike Winger's on my channel, guys. Oh, lol. I'll reach out to Mike. It'd be nice to have him on. And we'll talk like hermeneutics and stuff. He's on question number 16. I like that little thing he has. I might steal that. Not his, like the idea. Anyway, thanks. Hey, God bless you. You have a good day. Lex has never tried Armenian food. Well, Lex, here's what you got to do. Lex is in Pasadena, but in Texas. Look up there's some Armenians there probably that have some restaurants. James Alexander, I don't know what's going on here. So the one in charge changed his mind about the bad things he planned to do to his people, the Israel people. This is pigeon translation of the Bible, huh? If you had Mediterranean food, you're in the ballpark. That's true. Well, this is like a what you're mentioning here, Buck, is more of the Middle Eastern kind of Lebanese, Armenian kind of food when it comes to pita and hummus and stuff like that. And I would say that's very different to the Persian Armenian cuisine, which is like a fusion. All of this stuff is a fusion, and then compared to like what Hayastansis eat, Armenians from Armenia eat. So there's all sorts of fusions. But yeah. If you're ever if any one of you guys, by the way, is in the Los Angeles area, you're more than welcome at our church. More than welcome. So who is this individual that keeps changing their screen name and then quoting pigeon translation of the Bible? Look, if you don't find an Armenian place to eat, try an Iranian place. They have really good food as well. Wow, Buddy says, my dad's best friend is Armenian. All their parties have huge Armenian spreads. All day, man. All day. You can't have a gathering of Armenians without there being an excessive amount of food present. Like, when you go to an Armenian wedding, I know it's Emil. When you go to an Armenian wedding, it's either Emil or Tameg. When you go to an Armenian wedding, there are so many courses of food that come your way. Here's something very interesting about my wedding. This is just like it comes with a package, right? This guy said, I'm in the Los Angeles area. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. I'm in the Los Angeles area. Can you guys take me out for some Armenian barbecue? No, you are not welcome. Or you can take us out for some Armenian food. So you get a package deal, right? You go and then they'll ask you like, okay, here's what we're going to provide food-wise. This is how much you got to pay and all that. And I knew there was going to be so much food that was going to be brought, but I was very uneasy about it. I was like, I don't want all this food to go to waste, right? To be just trashed. And so one of the things I did was we cut down food at our wedding. We told them, oh, you got all these dishes. Like, we don't want it. It's unnecessary. We don't want this. We don't want that. And like the cost didn't change. It just, we didn't want to overdo it. And we still ended up with a bunch of food left over that we were eating for a couple of days. So, yes, join our church. Come by our church. We'll be more than welcome to. It's not discrimination, man. We can go out. You pay. I'll pray. We would love. There's amazing Persian Mediterranean place in Westwood, not Westwood, Westwood. Better than Rafi's. I forgot the name. It's probably called the Rafi's in Westwood. Okay, Joey, what's up, man? Hi, Arthur. You're an inspiration to me to keep going deeper into God's word. Not sure if you have answered this already, but what's the update with the war in Armenia? Well, Joey, I appreciate those kind words. It's always encouraging to me whenever I hear stuff like this. Sometimes, like I've shared this before, that it gets overwhelming doing this stuff. So it's hard. So every once in a while, I'm putting this out there. Yesterday, my friend Tomek was on there, who's in the chat right now. He said, what you guys get to see on camera is the real deal. It's who I am. And that's very true. And I'm telling you guys, it gets sometimes, not all the time. It gets heavy, man. Like I know creators that don't read comment sections because of the way it is. I try to read it to the best of my abilities, and then the things that are just useless, I kind of throw away. But nonetheless, so every once in a while, hearing these things is appreciated quite a bit. So thank you. And I should say this: if you guys have similar statements or something like that, and you guys want to email that to me, I write a monthly newsletter and I send it out to folks that are supporters of this ministry. It's really cool to send them real people. Hey, here's Joey, who's benefiting from his ministry. So info@apologiacenter.com if you guys want to send it my way. That'd be nice. No, what's going on with the war in Armenia? So the latest is that there's a little corridor that was left open that the Russian peacekeepers are supposed to protect to keep the connection between Armenia and Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh open. So, because that's their only access to civilization. About more than a month ago, a bunch of Azeri eco-activists came and blocked that road, which cut 120,000 Armenians in Artsakh off from the world. By the way, it's a winter month. They need gas, electricity, supplies, all that stuff. Initially, everybody was like, oh, they're eco-activists and they're protesting certain copper mines or something like that. Well, it ends up being that they're not. As a matter of fact, a bunch of the people in there are like military and stuff like that, and ends up being that those eco-activists leave and then soldiers like actually show up. So far, that's still blockaded. So there's 120,000 people in Artsakh that will have their gas sporadically turned off. Their internet was turned off. Electricity poles are damaged, and they will not allow the people to get up there and fix it. I mean, it's a serious humanitarian crisis that nobody's talking about. And some governments have come out and spoken against it, but it's all talk from everyone. And for some reason, the Russian peacekeepers aren't able to do much. So they're supposedly in talks for demarcation of borders, but they're still shooting back and forth. People are still dying. Every once in a while, we'll get a report of a couple of soldiers are wounded or died or something like that. So that's the update. That's the latest update, Joey. Appreciate you asking, by the way. And for those of you guys who are praying for Armenia in that situation, please continue to do so. We really need God to intervene in that situation. There's an excessive amount of alcohol at Armenian gatherings. That is correct. Yes. Rafi's is no longer owned by Armenians? That's it. I'm not going there again. You like that, huh, Daniel? You pay, I'll pray. Jackson says, I asked the reincarnation question earlier. I've been reading this book about a 2-year-old that is a reincarnated World War II pilot. He knows very detailed information about World War II era planes, specific names of his friends, and where he was stationed. He knew about the Japanese, the location of his death, and all verified by the dad researching info and contacting his said best friend from World War II, who verified details that only they knew. My question is, have you seen any of these accounts, and what is your opinion on them? I've been struggling with this in my faith because of how convincing it is. Yes, I've actually looked at these sorts of things, and I looked at them a while ago. Give me a second. I'll put a passage, and I'll also tell you what my thoughts are. So assuming this is not some ploy, right? It's not some made up thing. Let's just assume it's not. That the recounting of the child is correctly. So notice what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's reincarnation. What I'm saying is the recounting of the child. Let's say it's the real deal. This kid has these thoughts. By the way, I'm a bit confused here of how this 2-year-old is retelling this stuff. How this is a 2-year-old. That seems kind of off. Like, I've had 2-year-olds, 3 of them. They can barely formulate a sentence, let alone tell you all these things. But I mean, if somebody said it was a 5-6-year-old, I'll be a lot more like, okay, cool. 5-6-year-olds can articulate themselves well. Even my 4-year-old can't articulate themselves well. But whatever. Let's just say it is. Does that necessarily mean that reincarnation is true? No, it doesn't necessarily mean reincarnation is true. There could be all sorts of different spiritual activity that could be a result of that could be a cause for these things. So, biblically speaking, reincarnation is not taught. What is taught in the Bible is demonic possession. Now, again, I'm not saying this 2-year-old, and again, it's very interesting about a 2-year-old retelling these things. But at the very least, you could say there might be some demonic activity here, where demons know past events. It would not be a weirdly like shocking incident where that could take place, where a demon would tell a person, whether 2-year-old or 15-year-old or whatever like that, and that individual would be able to retell those things, and it appears as reincarnation. Now, I think Satan ultimately is in the game of misleading people and leading them away from God, and this is one of the ways that could potentially happen. One of the very interesting things is that we see this in this woman, this young lady, as a matter of fact, who is essentially running after Paul. And here, I'll open up the passage. So I was running after Paul. This is right here. As we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a slave girl, but she's a young lady, by the way, who had a spirit of divination and brought her owners much gain for fortune telling. So she's telling the future, quote unquote, telling the future. And she followed Paul and us, crying out, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who proclaim to you the way of salvation." Like, she's saying actually true things, right? They are. She's a fortune teller. She's making lots of money for her. She's a slave for her owners. And this she kept doing for many days. Paul, having become greatly annoyed, turned and said to the spirit, not to her, "I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her." And it came out at that very hour. And then the owners get, crazy because their business has been impacted, and they drag Paul and Silas out and stuff like that. And so I don't think demons know the future, by the way. I don't think anybody except God knows the future. So the question is, how can this young lady know the future? Well, I think one of the ways that demons act is that they actually say things are going to happen, and then they make those things happen. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And to the humans, it's like, oh, look, this woman actually has divine powers or something like that. This has been very common throughout history. Doesn't mean we believe in people that have the ability, like fortune tellers and stuff like that. Now, again, are all fortune tellers fake? No, I don't think all fortune tellers are fake. I think a lot of fortune tellers are fake, but I think some of them actually have spirits that are guiding them. And so this has to do with the demonic world and stuff like that. And Jackson, I think there's a way you can reconcile this with this specific situation, in that there could be demonic activity there. If you dig into it, I bet you anything you're going to find something with the parents, something that's happened. But I've seen stories of this way where it's like actually been authenticated. That's very different than this young man I met one time who told me that he was a knight in the Middle Ages. And I was like, that's cool. Like, he was a Scientologist and he believed in reincarnation. He's like, I was this great knight in the Middle Ages. And every Scientologist I've met that says things like this, they were all really great people. None of them were like some weird peasant that got like run over by a horse. Everybody wants to be great. So, okay, Fenton, I'm curious what it means to Christians. I'm curious what it means to a Christian to see the archaeological evidence that makes the biblical Exodus impossible. I don't think there is archaeological evidence that makes the Exodus impossible. I want to say, what's his name? Inspiring Philosophy did a really good video on the Exodus and the possible kind of explanations. What archaeological evidence is my question? What archaeological evidence do you have that makes the Exodus impossible? Okay. If you live in the U.S., kiss the ground. Look at Armenia and Ukraine and millions of other places. Amen. What do you mean the owners are my friends? I didn't hear anything about this. Hey, bro, your friends have sold their store and didn't tell you. What up, Jerome? If I called in, what would you want to talk about? You continue to invite me, but I don't know what I would say. Well, last time you were saying a bunch of stuff, I thought it might be easier if you called in. So it's on you, man. I read about that example, and the father was shown to be feeding the child info. Ooh, so Fenton, you're familiar with this. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd start digging around. My answer was assuming that it was all true. Jerome, you clearly disagree with Arthur. My name is Arthur, my good friend Saad, not Apologia Center. About whether the Christian worldview is true or whether God exists. This is an apologetics channel. Talk about why Christian arguments are weak. That's a good idea. I appreciate this channel. How you answer all questions to the best of your ability and your patience. Found you through Ruslan's channel. I'm fairly new to all Christian YouTube channels, but not new to the faith. Well, thanks, Lex. I appreciate that. I try my best. Not perfect. I don't know everything. I could say wrong things. That's just given when you deal with these subjects. But glad to be of help. I feel like if demons existed, who could take over people's minds, I could never know who to trust. That makes falling in love and trusting completely unwise because they may be a demon. Nobody remembers being a boring person. That is an interesting statement there, Fenton. Why is it that your immediate response to this is ultra skepticism and not, I'm okay trusting people unless they give me evidence not to trust them? Why is it I can't trust anyone now? Because my immediate response would be, I'm going to interact with people, and if they seem like normal, they don't have things that come to the surface that has to do with demonic sort of stuff, then they probably don't. If they do show that stuff, then okay, we'll deal with it. But your response is, I can't trust anyone. Because some would be like that. It seems to me that it's like way too excessive. Buck says, I'm barely religious. I like listen to Arthur for some reason. I really appreciate that. I appreciate this a lot more than people who don't agree with me, that they actually pay attention and listen to this stuff. I actually hate listening to myself, but that's common for people say they don't like hearing their own voices. But That means quite a bit to me, man. And yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but I appreciate it. I could do that, but that's boring. And talk of demons being a live options for an event. Huh? Baffle me. I didn't get this, honestly. I forget what I said last time. Arthur, I only remember talking about the ranking for my... I don't remember it either, by the way. I've had a lot of conversations since the last time I talked. I do lots of talking throughout the day, so... I'm a giant skeptic about everything, but I talked to a Christian psychic, that's weird, who looked into a glass of water and told me impossible things. Mary Malone, but she used to run a carnival. Yeah, I would just say the Bible very clearly speaks against these sorts of things. Psychic sort of stuff. Divination is very clearly called a sin in the Bible, and God doesn't want anyone involved in it. As a matter of fact, it's punishable by the death penalty in the Old Testament, as far as I remember. I could be wrong about that. Plenty of people get involved in the demonic world without realizing what they're getting involved into, and they get themselves in trouble. I know, huh? Christian psychic is an oxymoron. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. That's tough, man. My prayer would be, Buck, that God would just shower his grace upon you, brother. Like just his comfort, that God would give you an ability and see things and make sense of situations, difficult situations in life. This is not the first time that I've heard very similar things when people go through difficult times or loved ones go through difficult times where they start asking questions that they didn't at one point. So that's rough. I've always wanted to know if it's okay for Christians to do hypnotherapy. This is a very interesting subject. My immediate question would be, why would the Christian want to do hypnotherapy? Now, I know people who did hypnotherapy and quit smoking through it, but that was before they were Christians. Generally speaking, here's what I don't like. I don't like not being in control of myself. And I think that's biblical. I think we should always be in control of our senses. I don't ever want to put myself into a situation where I'm no longer in control of myself. Does that make sense? So hypnotherapy is a sort of thing where I would just say, I don't want to lose control of that, of my mind. My mind is probably the most precious thing I have. It's probably the most working part of my person. Right? It's always functions, always going. My eyesight is bad. I'm bald. I have a strange nose. My beard is pretty decent, but that's graying. But I'm looking forward to the day where I have a fully gray beard that I can just grow out and just say weird stuff like Gandalf. I would like to have a full gray beard that's long and a staff and a pipe and just jump in front of my children every once in a while and say, "Thou shalt not pass." That'd be fun. But yeah, I'm not the tallest person. I'm playing soccer and I realize that I can't run as fast. And then when I watch myself on video, it looks really bad. But my mind does okay. My comment about demons makes me slightly less likely to call in because of the conversation moves towards talk of demons. I'll drift off because in my view, nobody should respect demonic claims. You might not have had the experiences that I've had or other people have had in life, and that might be why. I was a non-religious theist and don't know Christian views on a lot of specific points. I appreciate Arthur giving well thought out responses. That's why I listen as an atheist. Fantabulous. That's just, I'm humbled, man. I really am. Hey, Ashley's in the house. Ding, ding, ding. Jerome, I annoy Pine Creek adjacent people a lot. My ears! Yes! My ears are small and pointy. Thank you. That's one of my oldest friends. Thanks, man. One of my oldest friends jumped in here to say, by the way, you forgot your you forgot your ears. Oh. You guys get to see a portion into my life. Those of you guys who don't know me personally, you get to see the kind of friends I have. You've met my wife now. My friends will probably continuously, jump on here, and you see my interaction with them and stuff like that. And this is, I love this guy. He's probably texting me something. My phone's on. He's probably texted me some picture of a big gigantic ear or something. Nope, nothing yet. Gray hair is cool. I agree with you. Gray beards are even cooler. Wait, Arthur plays football? Oh, you go up on my apologies. I do play football. I'm a humongous Liverpool fan, by the way. My son plays. Yeah, I'm huge. Trust me. You would love to watch a game with me. Guaranteed. As a matter of fact, the pub I was going to, I haven't been going to because we moved a little further away. I'd go with my son, and I would probably say like 95% of the people there are like extremely liberal and atheists, and we get along quite fine. Daniel says, I was reading Exodus 34:7 and Ezekiel 18:18, and I don't understand it. Why does it seem like God contradicts himself? What am I missing? In Exodus, God does punish the descendants, and in Ezekiel, he doesn't. So let's go look at those passages. Okay. So this is Exodus 34:7. Let me pull this up, Daniel. Okay, let's read from 6. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression of sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. Okay, I think I know where this is going. And then we're going to jump into Ezekiel 18. That's a good question. Oh, that's Ezra. Ezekiel. Ezekiel's a funny name. I probably wouldn't name any of my kids Ezekiel. No, I haven't. If I'm going to have any kids after this, still wouldn't name him Ezekiel, because I don't want someone being Ezekiel. Okay. Now, suppose this man fathers a son who sees all the sins that his father has done. He sees and does not do likewise. So he's not repeating the sins of his father. He does not eat upon the mountains or lift up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel. Eat on the mountains, by the way, is sacrifices to idols, and then that follows up by idolatry. Does not defile his neighbor's wife. Does not oppress anyone, exact no pledge, commit no robbery, but gives his bread to the hungry and covers the naked with a garment, withholds his hands from iniquity, takes no interest in profit or obeys my rules, and walks in my statutes. He shall not die for his father's iniquity. He shall surely live. As for his father, because he practiced extortion, robbed his brother, and did what was not good among the people, behold, he shall die. So notice there's a qualification given here, Daniel, that this individual doesn't repeat the sins of his father, where the earlier passage seems to suggest, I would say, that the individuals that are in question, third, fourth generation are actually people who don't stop someone or who don't stand against someone committing these sins or go along with it. So I think the difference is in the qualification that's mentioned here in Ezekiel, that the son is nothing like the father. He doesn't repeat his father's actions. But if the son repeats his father's actions or even doesn't do anything to stop his father from doing those things, then he's going to be punished for those things. That's like face value, by the way, explanation. Hope that helps. Tell us about the demons you saw. Oh, man. It's okay. I've had just a couple of experiences, but I prefer not to. I don't like having those sorts of conversations, frankly. But, yeah. I don't agree with your attribution of experience, though. Why not? Why is my experience any less valid? These stories that I hear of demons are almost always incredibly dubious. Well, okay. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot of experiences that are dubious. You play soccer when you're in the U.S.? Yeah. I haven't been going. A lot of the guys that are my friends, they've been going and playing on Monday nights, and I was going, and then I haven't been going because I've been a bit lazy. But yeah. No way, Jerome. Come on, dude. Come on, man. I wish. When I was in Armenia, actually, it was a part of the plan for us to take a trip. But financially, it didn't make sense. I was going to go with my son. We were going to catch a Liverpool game at Anfield. Oh, I would love to be in Anfield for a Champions League game. One of these days. Maybe one day my son will play for Liverpool. I'm trying to breed my children into soccer players. They're my retirement policy. Shame. It does seem logical the way you explained it. Thanks. No problem. Anytime. Guys, we've been on for 2 hours and 3 minutes. It's 3:03. I probably should go have lunch. I also have to take out my car to the car wash. And I've been getting these random texts from what's it called? Like polling places. So annoying. And they just ask stupid questions and they want me to vote for their stupid candidates. They're not good candidates. I sincerely mean that, by the way. Like if they were, then I'm okay with that, but all the candidates are bad. Do you think sleep paralysis is demonic or medical? I would say it's probably medical, but that doesn't necessarily mean similar things aren't demonic. It's not just the sleep paralysis, I think. It's very proven, it seems to be, that it's medical. But there's a number of things that come with it that I would start saying, oh, it doesn't seem like it's just medical. I don't agree with them because demons are not things that are in the common collective experience of human beings. They absolutely are, as a matter of fact. When you look at the globe currently, are you telling me most of the world is more atheistic or spiritual in regards to their outlook of the world? More people around the world will talk about dreams and visions and demonic experiences and various things of that sort, rather than just pure naturalists. People are not, globally speaking, people are not naturalist, physicalist atheists. People are spiritual by nature. and they believe in these things. To say they're ignorant, stupid people who just need the advancement of modern science is not enough, by the way. Study at the university in Liverpool. Did you go to the University of Liverpool, or just like it was a university in Liverpool over the past few years? And my friend has a season ticket. Man, you're making me jealous. But I'm a Christian and I know how to control that, so I'm not jealous. Been to 2 Champions League games, multiple Premier League games. Well, it hasn't been a good season to show up to these games, has it? I'm utterly frustrated almost every single game. England became majority non-Christian for the first time. I think England's been majority non-Christian for a long time. People just self-identify themselves as Christian, as people in Armenia identify themselves as Christian, and I don't really think they are Christian. Atheism is mostly found in privileged countries, just saying. Ooh, shots fired, bombs dropped. Meant to say confirmed collective experience. Okay. I'm not saying you said that. I'm just saying it's not enough when people do say that. By the way, the University of Liverpool has, I think it has a really good religious studies program for like a PhD level. I remember doing the research. This tells you how much I like Liverpool. I remember doing research about like PhD programs and directions I can go into, and I was tempted. I was like, man, I should apply to this place, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't just to get the degree. It was like I get to live in Liverpool. But yeah, that would have been hilarious. That would have been a funny conversation with my wife. I'd be like, hey, I got accepted into a PhD program. We got to move to England. She'd be like, oh, I wonder where. She's thinking like London and, I'm like, oh, Liverpool. She's like, okay, you're not going to Liverpool to get an education. You're going there to watch games. Even I'm a Christian and I know how to control that, so I'm not jealous. Christian superpowers. Jealousy is not something that I've generally struggled with. Other things have been, but I really haven't been jealous. I think I had good parents and who taught me well in this area. Even atheists are spiritual. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. We have no need for God in our privileges. Food, got the medical care, have that. It's privilege to believe you don't need any help, especially with your soul. That's an interesting perspective, actually. Also, these people who report demonic experiences are the ones that I'm aware of, and I find them to be incredibly dubious. Not much more I can say about that, honestly. Sure, yeah, and I would say I wouldn't put them into a similar category. There's people I know that are highly, highly intelligent individuals that would run circles around you and I in all sorts of different ways who've experienced these things. So I wouldn't say they're dubious because nothing else they say is dubious. There are people who say dubious things, but it's like a bunch of stuff they say already is dubious, and then they add on to that, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to trust you very much. But yeah. I go back and forth with Christians on some of this stuff. There's like those demon slaying Christian folks on YouTube. They got lots and lots of followers. They say a lot of stuff that I think is unbiblical and wrong. And I think they're misdiagnosing a bunch of people that could very well have mental disabilities or mental health issues that they're just telling them that they have demons. I think that's wrong. But that doesn't mean the real stuff is not out there. Probably going to do a philosophy master's there. Cool, man. Welcome to the club once you do that. There are almost no real atheists. I never met a person who really believed that there is no higher power or something like that. Most who claim to be atheists are agnostic. So it's very difficult because this happens to be about like personal experiences. a lot of people I talk to, I'm talking like common day-to-day folks that I speak with, like at a coffee shop, and they're like, I'm an atheist. After talking to them for about 30 to 40 minutes, it comes to the surface that they're not really atheists of that sort. Okay. They're not necessarily denying the existence of God. They just have a bunch of questions, and then would, so they're very open to it. So they'd be either soft or hard agnostic. The ones that have been educated quite a bit will probably, some of them will be in the hard agnostic camp. But I've met real atheists. I mean, I've met people who legitimately are atheists. I've read books by real, I would say, atheists. I don't know if I would say most or this and that, because I don't have a way of, calibrating that. That's fuel for the skeptic who wants to argue that spiritual beliefs arise out of the hope for your circumstances to be better times. I actually don't think there's any issues with that. It's equivalent to someone saying, I want food because I'm hungry. If food is made to satisfy your hunger, I don't think there's anything wrong with someone saying, my life circumstances give me a place where I, quote unquote, hunger for the spiritual realities that will fulfill it. That's not as powerful of an argument that some skeptics think it is. It's like, correct. You are tired and need to sleep because that's what's needed for your tiredness. So it is no surprise to me that people will actually ask questions of a certain sort whenever they confront certain things. I don't think that's strong, Jerome. You won't discuss your demon stories? Not now. Not today. What up? Have you heard about Torben Sondergaard from the last Reformation and his prison case? What do you think about the whole situation and the movement? I have no idea who that is. Right? You're not talking about Soren Kierkegaard, right? Like, confused here. No, you're not. Evangelist. I don't know who this is. No idea who this person is. Let's see. Movies. The Last Reformation. Mike Winger is on question number 18. ...2016 movie. I have heard about. Is this like a house church movement kind of stuff? No, they're doing like. I think I heard about this long time ago. I think it has to do with them going and doing evangelism, praying for people, healing, casting out demons, things of that sort. I don't have much opinions on it because I don't know much about it. What works out? What's being followed? That some believers can be socially biased and plugged into views based on hope. That seems trivially easy to show. By the way, it seems trivially easy to show that you can be socially conditioned to believe in atheism. I know plenty of people. Self-attested atheists because they had parents that were atheists or they had teachers that were atheists, and then now they come out like skeptic atheists, first semester philosophy students who think they know what's going on. It's like they were very clearly socially conditioned into atheism. And then they sit down and talk to someone that maybe knows a bit more than them, and then they throw that out the window. It could go either way. These things could go either way. As a matter of fact, none of that shows whether the thing in question is true or false. it's actually not a wrong thing to be socially conditioned to believe something that is true, at least in my opinion. So if I socially condition my children to believe that there are only two genders and not, oh man, I just went, right? If I socially condition my children to believe that there are only two genders, and there are actually two genders, by all metrics that we can understand, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like someone goes to them and says, oh, you know your dad socially conditioned you. So what? I also socially conditioned them to be nice and loving and forgiving and hardworking. You're socially conditioned. You should be lazy. Don't be hardworking. So social conditioning is everybody goes through it. Atheist, Christian, Buddhist, doesn't matter. The question is whether the thing that they're being socially conditioned into is true. That's what it really comes down to. I haunt Arthur weekly. What is this? Discuss your demon stories. It was the day I met Saad Bunny. It was a day like no other day. I don't remember the day I met Saad, but it was probably a very glorious day. So it is a house church thing. I don't buy this stuff, by the way. I don't think the argument that folks in the house church movement that they present, where it's like, oh, look, the biblical model is this, stands and holds any water, predominantly because the Bible never gives us a outline of how churches should be. It just assumes that's the case. And they met in homes, by the way, because that was the only place they could meet. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Yeah. Harder Weekly. House church isn't new. Look at the early church stories in the Bible. Correct. Arthur can articulate this well. Thank you. A true apologist. The reincarnated 2-year-old is 25 years old now. Probably was BS. It'd be interesting. You know, there was a story that came out with the kid going to heaven. There was a movie made about it and book and stuff like that. I think that came out, like they came out and showed that was false, right? It's like stuff like this happens all the time. People realize they can make money on it, and they do. So, yeah. The Torben situation is crazy. Hang on. They haven't charged him with anything, but he's been imprisoned for like 200 days. I don't know what's going on. Why is he imprisoned? Isn't he like just doing evangelism? Why is he in jail? There it is. It just came up. Now in jail for evangelist Torben Sondergaard, now in jail for 4 months, was arrested by FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Why? CBN News learned the Danish evangelist Torben Sondergaard was taken into custody June 30th in Florida while awaiting a decision on pending asylum application with the U.S. government. Arrested by the FBI agent, joint terrorism. He's been in ICE jail. Okay. So the ICE spokesman told CBN News that Sondergaard was arrested for overstaying his visa. There's plenty of people who've overstayed their visa and got arrested and let go and then went through a process of getting their legal paperwork in the United States. ICE did not charge him with gun smuggling, even though he was initially told this was the reason for the arrest. That's interesting. Sondergaard and his family fled Denmark in 2019, fearing persecution and arrest following a harassment campaign by the government and media. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, man. If you prove Christianity wrong by showing where it originated, can't we prove atheism wrong by showing where this by the way, you can't show Christianity is wrong by where the belief originated in a certain person. Like, oh, it's fear, therefore it's wrong. That commits the genetic fallacy. Just because of how it and atheism the same way. Just because of how a belief arises and originates doesn't prove that the belief is false. It might have been the KJV only guy. No, I don't think so. It's true, Arthur. That's how often it works. But remember that theists self-report themselves when forming their biases. The hope in Jesus, the afterlife, shifts in life conditions are different. Yeah, I've seen the same thing in atheists. Like something happens, like something will happen where they prayed that God would answer and God didn't. And then there's a shift in belief and they're now angry at God, or they don't believe in God, but they're still angry at him, or various things of that sort. Or they just don't believe in him. Comparing the social intervention into religious systems given their lore to social intervention to secular views is, in my view, neatly absurd. There's so much more going on in Christianity, for example. To say integration, not intervention. Okay. So yeah, again, I'm not talking about like Christianity specific. I'm talking about like globally, the world, people historically and globally have believed in spiritual entities. Or if you don't want to say spiritual, I would say non-physical. Like if we want to go on what the majority has believed. Oh, we're getting some things. The parents, under the guidance of a strongly motivated, self-described therapist, put the idea into his head themselves. You were right. Nevertheless, Bowman continued exploiting little James to promote her agenda, just as Bernstein did before her. Oh, interesting. There we go. Who was asking this question, by the way? Who was confused about this? Jackson? Jackson, there's a article that's been discovered here. Also, I'm not trying to show Christianity is false by pointing to social biases. I'm trying to show that epistemologies formed based on certain religious dispositions are rather flawed. And what would you base your epistemology on? Non-religious ones? Like it's just what are we? You know, I think when it comes to our epistemological development, there's going to be many reasons as to why. And you're going to get technical. Why our noetic structures include the things in which they do, and to which degree that they do. I would pay $50,000 to see Arthur debate Steven Anderson. I would not want to debate Steven Anderson. He wouldn't be the sort of person that I would enjoy debating. So rather than relying on ontologically cheap experiences that we all, why are you concluding? Like, why is your conclusion that for the individual, these are ontologically cheap? Why can't the same conclusion be made of yours? The lack of your ontological experiences. That we all can agree on, like most naturalists do, a spiritual person will defer to their experiences, which every other group rejects. That's just, I don't know whether I would agree with that. He'll just yell at Arthur. It would be something of this sort. Okay, if Steven Anderson and I were talking, it would be something of this sort. The Bible says X, Y, and Z. Arthur is rejecting the Bible because he's been fooled by those demon-possessed people who've changed the Bible. And they haven't read the real Bible. Sorry if you guys have me in your ears. And just a bunch of attacks on the persons and how Satan has made them do it and how everything's been changed. Maybe Steven Anderson's changed. I haven't seen videos of Steven Anderson recently. But I remember watching that video where he was talking about how Barack Obama was the Antichrist, and some guy in the congregation goes, "How do you know that?" Dude, I want to find this video. Some guy in the congregation goes like, "You don't know that. You can't say that for sure." And he just tells the guy, "Get the hell out of my church." Oh, man. I got to find this. He definitely has not changed. You can tell what kind of an optimist I am, right? Steven Anderson, get So I'm trying to find that video. The video he's like, "It's a sin not to beat your kids." Oh, there's a whole thing. Why I hate Barack Obama. I want the video, man. Has he cleaned this stuff out? Oh, Mike Winger has a video called Steven Anderson versus the Biblical Gospel. 3 years old. I can't find it. Why did I write Steven Anderson and a bunch of videos by Furtick come up? That's just so weird. The genetic fallacy is exactly my point. It was in reference to someone. The chat. Okay. I'm out. See ya. Blessings, bro. I'm not sure how I can phrase. But by the way, you made a comment that I think I agreed with. I'm a big proponent of keeping assumptions to a minimum. I don't disagree with you. Occam's razor, ontological cheapness are big things for me. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. On that issue, I don't disagree. I think a lot of people don't think about their epistemology or their ontology. And I think a lot of people just inherit this stuff. Like people tell them, and then they believe it. They don't think through it. So I'm all on board with you on that, Jerome. So I'm not sure I can phrase this. Like almost everything that I believe about how the world works, you would just agree on if we went through a list of some basic claims. I didn't say we wouldn't agree on those things. Now, if you did the same to me, I'd disagree with you. And so would members from other religions as well as your own, depending on the denomination. That's because we have different starting points. That's because we have different worldviews. Because questions of this sort are always answered in a worldview, not quoting a Bible passage, not even like ground up building, I would say. They are generally answered within your worldview. So, for example, when the naturalist is confronted by certain things, right? Let's just say anomalies. Let's just call them anomalies. And where maybe the person who's spiritual or the non-naturalist, right? Right, not spiritual. Let me just rephrase. Say there's a naturalist, and then there's somebody who believes in that we have a soul, immaterial selves or something like that. And then issues of consciousness or whatever come up. Certain issues that are very challenging to the physicalist or the naturalist, the naturalist punts to certain things like, oh, we don't know it yet. We'll know it one day in the future. Or it must be brain activity that develops this thing. And then they try to establish it in that, even though they have a very hard time and can't do that. We'll find out about it in the future. It's like because their worldview doesn't allow for that. And I think everybody does this. The sooner we actually agree, we all do this. It's not just a religious person that does this. We will have a lot friendlier conversations. Yeah. And I think that your worldview, given what I know about Christian theism, is incredibly ontologically expensive. Maybe so. Maybe so. It is not, I would agree that the Christian worldview is the way you're using ontological cheapness and expensive. Yeah, it complicates matters quite a bit. I wouldn't disagree with that. Okay, guys, it's 3:32. I was gonna leave 30 minutes ago, but I'm getting really hungry, and I gotta take my car for a car wash. It's disgusting. It's what happens when you have 3 kids. They really do a number on your car. But it's awesome having kids. So make sure you have kids. It's a good thing. Don't believe the people that are saying that the world is overpopulated. It's not. It's just a matter that we don't know how to use our resources. And if you're complaining about that, just think about the amount of trash you produced this past week. Buy some chickens. Feed your trash to your chickens. We actually do not have strong knowledge of how the brain works. Brain science is an extremely recent study. So we'll talk about consciousness and brain stuff later, probably when I pull out a bunch of my consciousness books from Dan Dennett and fellow atheist Jaegwon Kim, who's not a Christian or one who believes in the soul, is a physicalist, and go through them and then re-examine the arguments that I looked at, 6-7 years ago. It's really weird how stuff just goes into those parts of your memory. So we all need refreshers. But until then, I got about 3-4 books I'm reading at the time. God bless you guys. Even if you don't believe in them, may God bless you. Thanks for hanging out. And it's been a joy talking to you guys. I will see you guys Monday.